The mirror doesn't lie, but we learn to look away because it hurts to see that the sparkle in our eyes is no longer there. Do you remember when you felt whole? When you woke up with plans, desires, courage? Well, sometimes time doesn't just take the years. It takes us too. We give, we surrender, we put ourselves last. And when we realize we've lost ourselves and the silence that remains, it's not the house's silence, it's the soul's. Today, I want to invite you to look again, with tenderness, with honesty, because maybe what you're searching for the most is still inside you. Stay with me till the end, because this reunion with yourself can start now. When did I lose myself? The silent question that comes with the years. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. It's the silence that appears when the house is full, but the soul feels empty. When you smile at others, but no longer know how to smile at yourself. When you look in the mirror and no longer recognize who's there. The face is familiar. The marks of time aren't frightening. They tell stories. What frightens is the gaze. Dull, absent, soulless. As if the woman or man you once were slowly drifted away and no one noticed. Not even you. When did I lose myself? It's a question not asked aloud. It arises from deep within, on those nights when everything seems too calm. And yet, peace doesn't come. It appears when you wear the same clothes, but nothing feels like it fits your essence anymore. When you hear an old song and feel nostalgia, not just for the past, but for who you were in it. The truth is, life was lived for others, children, partnerships, responsibilities, bills, deadlines, routines, all done with love, with dedication, with courage, but also with a subtle and constant renunciation of self. You got used to being the pillar, to solving everything, to putting yourself last. But over time, last became never. And one day I'll take care of myself became a broken promise. There's a profound difference between aging and disappearing from oneself. The body changes, yes, but it's not the body that hurts. What hurts is realizing you've been left behind by yourself, that desires were pushed aside, that dreams were forgotten, that wishes were replaced by to-do lists. Gradually, you faded, not out of weakness, but out of care, out of loyalty, out of love. But now, the world has quieted, the children have grown, the phone doesn't ring as much, obligations have changed faces. And what's left is this emptiness staring back at you every time you pause. The mirror doesn't lie. It shows today's face, but also reveals the weight of what's been stored away, the decisions not made, the words not spoken, the desires not lived. That's when the shock comes. It's not the shock of old age, it's the shock of abandonment, abandonment of self. And yet, within this shock, something rare is born, a beginning, a chance. Because deep in those tired eyes, someone is still there, waiting, calling, someone who hasn't died, someone who hasn't left, someone who just needs a gesture, a more present look, a more tender touch, a more courageous decision, someone who wants to return, and who, perhaps, is just quietly asking, is there still time? Yes, there is. And this could be your first reunion. There's a pain that has no name, but it weighs down the entire body. A sensation that's not physical, but spreads through the shoulders, the chest, the back of the throat. It's the accumulation of what's been left unsaid, of what's been unlived, of what you, out of love, fear, or duty, swallowed in silence. For years, the peace of the home was paid for with your absence. You gave in, took deep breaths, swallowed hard, put things off, and on the outside, everything seemed fine, but inside, your heart grew tight, as if holding too many words in too small a space. Some dreams were buried alive, in the drawer of "one day I'll do it," in the folder of "not now." And over time, they stopped knocking, but they didn't disappear. They're there, waiting for you to finally look at yourself truthfully. The silence that once protected others now screams within you. It screams in sleepless nights, in tears without reason, in irritation that explodes without warning, in everything the body tries to say when the soul hasn't been heard. And even though time has passed, Even though many things seem too distant, there's profound relief in starting to give voice to what's been stuck, to say what hurt, to name what was lost, to acknowledge what still lives. Because the body ages, yes, but the heart keeps waiting, waiting for you, waiting to be truly heard, not by others, but by the one who matters most. Yourself. You don't need to shout. You don't need to justify yourself. Just start speaking with honesty, with compassion, with the firmness of someone tired of keeping their own truth inside. And perhaps, in doing so, you'll discover that what seemed heavy was just unspoken words. And what seemed too late was just the exact time to listen. And what if your greatest pain isn't what you lacked, but what you never allowed yourself to be? Because sometimes the wound isn't in what the world took from you. It's in what you stopped living out of fear of being who you were. But it's never too late to open that door. Even if your voice is still weak, it's yours. And it deserves space. Now, perhaps for the first time, you have the time and the courage to hear it. Life has a subtle and sometimes brutal way of waking us up. It doesn't ask if we're ready, it just pushes. And what at first feels like a crisis later reveals itself as a calling, a veiled invitation from the soul to return to what was lost. Many people reach 50 thinking they know everything about themselves, but all it takes is a loss, an unexpected silence, a morning when the body feels unbearably heavy and everything that once felt certain starts to unravel. Routine turns into exhaustion. The house feels empty, even when full, and the certainties that sustained decades suddenly make no sense. That's when something shifts. A forgotten book finds you, a conversation that hurts, but opens a portal, a deep silence that scares you, but clears the way. Suddenly, the pain is not just pain. It's a sign, not of an end, but of a transition, like an old skin that needs to be shed so something truer can emerge. Transformation almost always begins without warning. There are no guarantees, no map. The only thing that exists is the feeling that pretending hurts more than changing. And when that happens, something inside you realigns. It's not quick, it's not pretty, but it's real. Acceptance, in that moment, feels like breathing after a long dive, not because reality became easier, but because, at last, you stopped fighting what you feel. This turning point didn't come because you planned it. It came because there was no way to keep going as before. And even without knowing what comes next, the first step was taken with fear, with doubt, but also with truth. And that's what changes everything. For a long time, you learned to listen to what came from outside, the voice of your children, the voice of your parents, the voice of work, the voice of routine, and slowly, your own went quiet, not out of cowardice, but because it seemed easier, more practical, more right. But now, after so many years of saying yes to what was expected of you, there comes a moment when your own no starts to scream. It's a strange discomfort, like something inside you no longer fits the frame the world gave you. And for the first time in a long time, you find yourself asking, and me? What do I want today? Not tomorrow, not when everything's sorted. Today, here, now. That question, small in form, is immense in effect, because it marks a return, a rescue, the practice of listening to yourself again, even if the answer hasn't come yet, even if the fear is still there. It starts like this, with small acts of emotional rebellion, taking your time with a coffee, just because, not replying to messages that demand too much, choosing a different way home, just to feel it's still possible to change direction. It's in those small gestures that your once dormant identity starts to wake up, and suddenly you remember an old passion, a forgotten talent, a wish that seemed silly but was always yours. Rediscovering what moves you is like opening a window in a house that's been shut for years. The light enters, the air flows, the soul breathes. And no, it's not easy, because the world isn't used to people who return to themselves. But deep down, that's what saves you. Not following rules, but following what pulses. The soul doesn't age. It just waits to be heard again, even when the body no longer responds like before. Even when time feels short, the soul is still there, whole, alert, waiting for the moment you pause, look within and say, now it's my turn, and maybe that moment is today. For much of your life, you had to fit into roles, into expectations, into demands that weren't yours. You were a daughter, a mother, a wife, a professional. You were everything to everyone except to yourself. And now, when most expect you to slow down, settle, accept the label of the final phase, that's exactly when the urge to change becomes strongest. Not as an escape, but as a return. Because deep down, you've always been meant. You just never had the space to exist fully. Maturity carries a hidden gift. It frees you from the need to please. You no longer need to justify your desires, prove your worth, beg for approval. And that's when the miracle begins. You give yourself permission. Permission to say no with peace. Permission to say yes with truth. Permission to change, even without explanation. It's not about revolution. It's about ritual. Sometimes a fresh start is born from something small, but deeply symbolic. Writing a letter to the woman you were and thanking her. Cutting hair that carried heavy memories. Starting a new project just because your heart asked, without thinking about outcomes. These gestures aren't silly. They mark territory. They quietly say, I'm coming back to myself. After 50, change is more authentic because it doesn't need to be strategic. It can be sincere. It can be light. It can be yours. Because by now, you know, it's not the world that gives you permission. It's you who allows yourself. And sometimes, allowing yourself is the quietest and most powerful act of a lifetime. There comes a moment in life when time takes on a different weight. It's no longer made of deadlines and sprints. It's made of presence. After 50, the years ahead aren't what's left. They're the most genuine ones. Because now you know what matters. You know what drains you. You know, in your body and your soul, where you no longer want to be. And that changes everything. There's a freedom that only comes with accumulation of losses, of gains, of silences, of wounds you no longer need to explain, of scars that healed the way they could, but healed nonetheless. Time now isn't leftover. It's essence. It's choice. You've given so much of yourself. Maybe now it's time to give back. To you. And that's not selfishness. It's legacy. Because the world needs people who dare to be real after life's halfway point, who show with lived bodies and undeterred souls that there is beauty in beginning again, that there is dignity in changing direction, that there is courage in shedding old roles and owning your light. This is the invisible legacy, not the one that leaves possessions, but the one that leaves example. A subtle, yet transformative example. The one that says, you can choose yourself, even now, especially now. That's what being a beacon means. Not shouting your story, but living it so fully that it lights the path for those who come after. You don't need to be anyone's mirror. You just need to be you, whole, imperfect, present, and that is light enough. For a long time, they told us aging was the ending, the final bend in the road, the time to settle, to slow down, to make do with what's left. But the truth is, aging can be, and often is, the most authentic chapter of an entire life. Because now you no longer live to prove, you live to feel, to experience with more presence, more wholeness, more awareness. The losses happened. Yes, you know that. And there's no sugarcoating it. You lost time. You lost people. You lost parts of yourself that won't return. But instead of being defined by what's behind, you can be guided by what still pulses, by what survived, by what never stopped calling you, even in silence. The identity that's born after 50 isn't imposed. It doesn't come from outside. It's chosen. It's stitched together with threads of your own truth, with colors you once rejected out of fear, with contours time shaped, with pain, yes, but with beauty too. You are not what you've lost. You're what you had the courage to find again. And if, until now, everything felt like rushing, proving, performing, may this moment be one of pause, presence, simplicity. The end is not the end. It's simply the first time you walk without needing to pretend. And on this new path, there's space to breathe slower, to feel without hurry, to love without fear, to finally be who's always been there, waiting for this moment. Because despite the scars, despite the time, despite it all, you still have time, and it might now be the most yours of all. Getting here was no small thing. It took decades of giving, of trying, of silence, of strength. You walked long distances within yourself, without applause, without witnesses. And now, with everything you've lived, you can, for the first time, live in truth. It's not about erasing the past or denying what was, but about embracing every part of your story as fertile ground for what can still bloom. You no longer have to obey outdated versions of yourself or carry expectations that no longer fit. You can choose. Choose what stays. Choose what goes. Choose who you want to be from here forward. Because starting over after 50 isn't delay. It's maturity with courage, self-love with memory, clarity with soul. And the most beautiful part is that now you know. You don't need to ask for permission anymore. Life is telling you, with the calm of someone who knows how to wait. You still have time. Time to return to yourself. Time to look at yourself without guilt. Time to say, now, yes, this is me. If something in this video touched your silence, your tired body, your sleeping heart, then take it with you, like someone carrying a key not to return to what was, but to finally open the door to who you've always been. There is still time, and that time starts now.